This is a show, cha-cha, with no particular niche, baby. It's always about hanging out. Maybe we'll laugh at some stuff, maybe we'll learn something new, but it's always about hanging out, me and you. Hi, hello, and welcome to That Thing with James. I'm your host, James, and this is a bi-weekly podcast about nothing in particular. Yes. What was the last episode about? I forgot. Yes, it was about the hermits. Yeah, the last episode was about how people used to keep people, aka hermits, aka people acting, like hired to act like hermits, as ornaments for their lawns. Yes, eccentric, wealthy people in England did this at one point in time. But that's not what today's episode is about. I was looking for some more weird history not too long before I hit record on this. I don't script this show. I just fly by the seat of my pants. And I think I found an article about a dead pope who was put on trial. Yes, I believe the corpse was dragged to court. I'm not sure about the details, so we're going to figure this out together. But first, some quick business. If you like this show and you want more of it, and if you want to help support it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. Yes, patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. Support the show and get access to over 100 bonus episodes. Holy cow, holy guacamole, holy mackerel, Batman. There are over 100 bonus episodes, and you can access them all at patreon.com/thatthingwithjames. And to those of you who are already patrons, thank you for your support. You rock. So for that link and links to my socials and show email, you can find those things written in the episode description. And if you're watching this on video, they should be appearing or will have just appeared at the little banner at the bottom. That's called a chyron. Yes, a chyron. And for listeners, in case you didn't know, this show is on YouTube. You can find it. Go to YouTube and just search That Thing with James, and my channel will pop up, and you'll hit subscribe, and all the stuff will appear, and your life will get better. I make no promises, but yeah. All right. So let's jump into this. Why the hell not? I'm not even going to get into how I found this. We're just going to dive right in. We're going to raw dog this topic and see what happens, see what comes of it. This is on a website called Atlas Obscura, atlasobscura.com. I believe I've used this website before, at least once before. The article was published on March 3rd, 2014. Holy shit, 10 years ago. Written by Elizabeth Harper. The title is The Cadaver Synod, when a Pope's corpse was put on trial. Oh, ooh, and there's a nice picture of the Basilica of St. John Lateran, Lateran, Lateran. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Let's just go with the first one. Like the Zen Buddhists say, first idea, best idea. So let's say John Lateran. Although that doesn't sound Italian at all, but whatever. Roman churches, as the article begins, Roman churches usually aren't shy about their macabre histories. At Santa Maria dell'Orazione el Morte, a nun will be happy to let you photograph their crypt of abandoned bodies in exchange for a small donation. At Santa Prassede, a sacristan will give you a pamphlet and helpfully point out the well where Saint Praxedis, Praxedis. How do you say that? Praxedis, and Saint Pudentiana, Saint Praxedis and Saint Pudentiana poured the blood that seeped Okay, here's the thing that happens when we're reading Catholic history is some really fucked stuff happens, and I feel it trips me up, so I have to reread sentences sometimes. And so that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to reread this. At Santa Prassede, a sacristan will give you a pamphlet and helpfully point out the well where Saint Praxedis and Saint Pudentiana poured the blood that seeped out of the 3,000 bodies of martyrs they were hiding. What the fuck? Why are they hiding 3,000 bodies? Why are they pouring their blood? Let's see if this answers anything. At the famous Capuchin, what the fuck? They have a monkey? What is a Capuchin crypt? Capuchin. I'm pretty sure that's how you spell Capuchin monkey. Funny aside, one time, this was when I was living in Austin, I was on, I forget what the cross street was. Shit, I forget what any of the streets were, but I wasn't too far from my apartment. I was coming back from eating at some nearby restaurant. I was coming back. I was stopped at a stoplight at a small neighborhood intersection, and at the lane just to my left, heading in the same direction, was a man. There was a man driving a pickup truck, like an old Tacoma, and on his chest rests what at first I thought was a puppy. And then as I glanced again, the guy didn't even notice me glancing. We're fully on staring at this point. Upon further inspection, the puppy sitting on his beer belly, resting on his chest as he drove around Austin, was not actually a puppy, but a Capuchin monkey. Yeah, there was a man driving around with his pet Capuchin monkey resting on his beer belly, cuddling against his breast. It was beautiful. It was cute. I laughed my ass off. That might have been the only time I've ever seen a Capuchin monkey, and it was sort of in the wild on a man's beer belly. Let's keep reading. At the famous Capuchin crypt, you can even buy postcards of the mummified monks to send to dear friends or enemies. Why is the Catholic Church got to be so fucked up? Especially medieval and Renaissance. Talk about some fucked shit. Let's keep reading. But if you go to the Basilica San Giovanni Laterano, looking for such morbid attractions, you'll find you're on your own. What happened there over 1,000 years ago is still too horrible to speak of. This is the church where Pope Stephen VI put the rotting corpse of Pope Formosus on trial in January of the year 897. What? Say what? The trial was called the Cadaver Synod, or Synodus Horrenda, since everything is more colorful in Latin. It ushered in one of the most corrupt eras in the history of the papacy at a time that's now referred to in all seriousness as the pornocracy. Pornocracy, huh? To understand what happened to Pope Formosus in the beginning, to understand what happened to Pope Formosus's unfortunate corpse, you have to understand that the world around him was falling apart. The Western Empire Charlemagne had united had since crumbled away into smaller and smaller factions. Little fiefdoms were eyeing Rome's treasures and demanding protection money while the city was still smarting from the Saracen sack of 846. Rifts formed within the church as the men who aspired to be pope found they needed the additional strength of one of the many secular leaders to achieve it. The story of the corpse trial actually starts during the reign of Pope John the Eighth. At this time, Formosus was Bishop of Porto, the Roman suburb, not the city of Portugal. He was also a successful missionary, known for spreading Catholicism throughout the Bulgar kingdom. Bulgar being Bulgar, not Bulgar like Bulgar wheat, if you know anything about healthy eating. But he might have been a little too good at his job. Pope John VIII turned on Formosus and accused him of violating a law that prevented bishops from ruling over more than one place at a time. A law that was supposed to prevent bishops from building up their own little fiefdoms. And perhaps more tellingly, John accused Formosus of violating a recently passed law that forbid openly aspiring to the papacy. Oh, what a bunch of, two-faced, speaking out of both sides of their mouths, sneaky, snaky bastards. It's the Game of Thrones, the game of popedom is what was happening here. Formosus was getting a little too close for comfort, so John had him executed. Yeah, just a bunch of sneaky, power-hungry bitches. Let's keep reading. As it turned out, John's paranoia was justified. Oh, fuck. Now I'm eating humble pie. Now I'm eating crow. Foot in mouth. Ugh. Hopefully I don't get a disease from it. This is, quick aside, this is not a foot fetish podcast, by the way. Foot in mouth is a figure of speech. It is not to be taken Tarantino-ly. It's not to be taken literally. Okay, let's keep reading. He was the first pope to be murdered by his own people. At first, he was poisoned, but the poisoner lost patience while waiting for the potion to take effect and bashed John's head in with a hammer. Okay. After John's death, the papacy had such a high turnover rate, it's a wonder anyone wanted the job at all. Marinus I succeeded John and reinstated Formosus as bishop. The following year, Pope Adrian III succeeded Marinus, but barely lasted a year before being assassinated himself. Pope Stephen V followed shortly thereafter, and I can hardly keep up with all these assassinations and all these people vying for power. It's like the Godfather, but it's more like the Allfather, the Pope. Finally, in 891, it was Formosus's turn. He managed to hold on to the papacy for 5 turbulent years before dying of a stroke. His successor, Boniface, spelled Boniface, like Bonyface, but since it's Italian, it's a Boniface. His successor, Boniface VI, was elected. Why don't they have their own fucking names? Everyone's got to be a third, a fifth, a sixth. We've got fractions. We've got names broken into fractions, factions fighting each other. And here, we're not even laughing about the fact that the guy's name is Bonyface. He's hiding behind his Boniface. The sixth was elected quickly to squelch. Whoa. Squelch? You mean quell? Squelch is the sound a gushy gushy makes. But he was an odd choice. He had been defrocked. Oh my God. Now we got a squelching frock? No fucking way. Twice for quote unquote immoral conduct. He only ruled for 15 days before he died of either gout or poisoning. Again, porque no los dos? I don't know Italian or Latin, but I'm sure it sounds quite similar. Next up was Pope Stephen, although this guy is spelled Stephen, Stephen, and I can never read that without just wanting to call it Stephen or Stephen. That's it, like Stephen Wolf. Pope Stephen VI, less than a year into his papacy, he gave the order to dig up Formosus and force his corpse to stand trial for crimes Pope John VIII had excommunicated him for, seeking the papacy and ruling over more than one place at a time as bishop. Why in the frock would you dig up a oozy woozy squelching corpse and drag it in to be put on trial? God. Now, Stephen VI's reason for desecrating this poor corpse could have been to shore up some political alliances with a faction that hated Formosus, but more than likely, it was to cover for the fact that Stephen was guilty of the exact same thing he was accusing Formosus of. Oh my God, these people are so fucking dumb. And you know what's the dumbest thing about all of this? This would still fly today. You know there are motherfuckers in seats of power that right now would totally do something like this to cover their own asses. I'm sure you can think of at least one or two world leaders alive right now who would pull a stunt like this. It's called the Peter Principle. I recently learned this term, the Peter Principle. The concept isn't new. The name is new to me. Peter Principle refers to, I think it was succinctly described to me as something along the lines of your status, the level of status or power you have is equal to your level of incompetence. That was not succinct at all. You are failing upward, basically. The more incompetent you are, the more power you are given. Such is the Peter Principle. And I think this fits it to a T. Formosus had made Stephen bishop, and Stephen had become Bishop of Rome, a title that comes with the papacy. While he still held that post. Okay. Yeah. But if Formosus could be found guilty of that same crime, being a simultaneous bishop of two places, his actions would be null, and Stephen wouldn't have been a bishop when he was elected pope. Stephen also might have been completely insane. Okay. And here we've got on the website that I can see, but you can't, a really, really badass picture of, well, this corpse wearing some really baller robes, sitting on a chair in the middle of some kind of trial next to a pulpit. Okay. So the corpse of Formosus was dragged out, dressed in papal robes and propped up in a chair at San Giovanni Laterano. Ironically, poor Formosus's name means, quote-unquote, good-looking. Formosus means good-looking. Oh, okay. Though by then, he was a horrific sight because he was a corpse, get it? A deacon was appointed to speak for him, but predictably didn't say much while Stephen screamed at the corpse. I need you to dig up that motherfucker's corpse. I need you to dig him up, put him in his best clothes, dress him up to the nines, put him in a tux, wheel him in, prop him up in the chair, and I'm going to fucking have my way. I'm going to scream at that motherfucker. I'm going to give that corpse a piece of my mind. A deacon was appointed to speak for him, but predictably didn't say much while Stephen screamed at the corpse. At one point in the trial, oh my God. At one point in the trial, an earthquake shook the basilica, damaging part of it. Talk about signs. But even in the face of this ominous sign, Formosus was found guilty on all counts, stripped of his vestments, and had 3 fingers he used for blessing on his right hand chopped off. This would make a great movie. Just gonna say that. Stephen had him buried on an obscure plot of land, but then, thinking better of it, oh my God, had him dug up one more time and tossed into the Tiber, the river. At this point, the people of Rome had just about enough of Stephen and his corpse trial. A mob threw him in prison where he was strangled in his cell. Just gonna say, I cannot remember the name of the guy that I'm trying to think of right now, but he didn't kill himself. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, nor did Stephen. A mob threw him into prison where he was strangled in his cell. Later that year, San Giovanni Laterano was nearly destroyed by a fire as if to rid itself of the whole nasty business. Oh, wow, that's a lot of stuff. The fire, the earthquake, a corpse being pulled up, dressed in Pope vestments, strapped to a chair, screamed at, stripped of its vestments, and having 3 of its corpse fingers cut off, and then being buried, and then being dug up again, and then tossed into a river, and then there's an earthquake while this corpse trial's happening. The dude who was screaming at the corpse gets tossed into a cell, and they say, you know what, fuck this. They strangle him, and then they burn down the fucking place. I think I need a sip of water. Just a second. All right, I'm back. And if you're a writer and if you're having a block of some type, just steal stories. That's what so many great, famous, historical writers did. It's what Shakespeare did. Steal your fucking stories. And you don't even have to steal it. I mean, preferably don't steal it like, certain comedians steal jokes, but take something. For example, this story from history. If you're looking for an original story, fuck it. Take an unoriginal story. Dig into history, because there are plenty of wackadoo things that transpired, and you can adapt it. You can fit it. You can twist it around, whatever. If you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for a foundation to some kind of story, look to history, because there's all sorts of wild shit like this. The next pope, we're continuing reading now. The next pope, Pope Romanus, it's Romanus, annulled all the actions of Stephen VI, but was overthrown in less than a year. His success, Jesus, it's just nonstop. In, out, revolving door, high turnover, high whack. They're all getting whacked. They're all whacking each other. It's a veritable papal whack-off. His successor, Pope Theodore II. See, this is why I really need like a guest or a co-host, because I need someone to laugh at my jokes. It would fill in all the silence, because here I'm just by myself, talking to myself. Anyway, his successor, Pope Theodore II, was only pope for 20 days, yet managed to recover the body of Formosus. Why? Leave the corpse alone. Quit touching the fucking corpse. Don't. His success. Another successor. Yeah, okay, I'm tripping up. Let's start this paragraph again. All right, class, reel it in, lock in. The next pope, Pope Romanus, annulled all the actions of Stephen VI, but was overthrown in less than a year. His successor, Pope Theodore II, was only pope for 20 days, yet managed to recover the body of Formosus. His successor, John IX, oversaw Formosus's reburial in St. Peter's Cathedral. Today, there is still a monument that lists the names of the popes buried there. There you can see Formosus's name carved in stone, one of the last vestiges of cadaver synod. And there's a picture of, looks like marble, maybe, some kind of stone. But yeah, there's a bunch of names etched in with years. Oh shit, that's the end of that that's the end of that fucking article. Yeah, so I want to learn more about this pornocracy thing. Give me just a second. I'm going to look up this pornocracy thing. Hold on. Okay, I found it. This is just on Wikipedia. And it's not super long, but, I'm filling in some time for the rest of the episode. So here we go. The Saeculum Obscurum, or the Dark Age/Century, also known as the pornocracy or the rule of the harlots, was a period in the history of the papacy during the first 2/3 of the 10th century, following the chaos after the death of Pope Formosus in 896, which saw 7 or 8 papal elections in as many years. It began with the installment of Pope Sergius III in 904 and lasted for 60 years until the death of Pope John XII in 964. During this period, the popes were influenced strongly by a powerful and allegedly corrupt aristocratic family, the Theophylacti. It's some mob shit. This is all mob shit. Mob goes old, mob goes deep, mob go hard. And their relatives and allies. The era is seen as one of the lowest points of the history of the papal office. What the fuck is this word? Periodization. I've never heard that word before. The Saeculum Obscurum was first named and identified as a period of papal immorality by the Italian cardinal and historian Kaiser, not Caesar. It's not pronounced Caesar, it's pronounced Kaiser, like Kaiser Wilhelm, even though it's Caesar. It's Kaiser. Kaiser Baronius, in his Annals Ecclesiasticalici in the 16th century. Baronius's primary source for his history of the period was the contemporaneous writer Bishop Liutprand of Cremona. Baronius himself was writing during the Counter-Reformation, a period of heightened sensitivity to clerical corruption. His characterization of the early 10th century papacy was perpetuated by Protestant authors. A lot of pa. And it doesn't end there. In the terms pornocracy, heterocracy, or heterocracy, and the rule of the harlots were coined by Protestant German theologians in the 19th century. Historian Will Durant refers to the period from 867 to 1049 as the nadir of the papacy. That's a word you don't hear every day. 10th century popes. The Theophylacti family were descended from the Theophylactus. They held positions of increased importance in the Roman nobility, such as Iudex, or judge, Vestararius, the Gloriosissimus Dux, or most glorious duke, consul, senator, and magister militurum. The Theophylact's wife, Theodora, and daughter, Marozia, held a great influence over the papal selection and religious affairs of Rome during conspiracies, affairs, and marriages. Marozia became the concubine of 45-year-old Pope Sergius III when she was 15, and later took other lovers and husbands. She ensured that her son John, who was rumored to have been fathered by Sergius III, was seated as Pope John XI, according to Antipodota. I'm not going to read that. I'm already so many complicated words here. Liutprand affirms that Marozia arranged the murder of her former lover, Pope John X, who had originally been nominated for office by Theodora, through her then husband Guy of Tuscany, possibly to secure the elevation of her current favorite pope as Pope Leo XI. There is no record substantiating that Pope John X had definitely died before Leo XI was elected, since John X was already imprisoned by Marozia and was out of public view. Theodora and Marozia held great sway over the popes during this time. In particular, as political rulers of Rome, they had effective control over the election of new popes. Much that is alleged about the Saeculum Obscurum comes from the histories of Liutprand, Bishop of Cremona. Liutprand took part in the Assembly of Bishops, which deposed John XII and was a political enemy of the Roman aristocracy and its control over the papal elections. Yeah, okay. I'm burning up, kids. So I think that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Corpse Trials. Hope to catch you next time. Bye.